Good afternoon, everybody. Hi. How's your day? How's the conference? Good? First timers? Look at that. That's amazing. Well, I hope you've had a great week. This is a terrific conference, and Best Friends does an amazing job. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm Janet Testerman. I'm the CEO of Young Williams Animal Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. Any South Tennesseans here? All right. Oh, hi. So just excited to be here and share with you what was a long journey to assume the responsibilities of animal control. 5-year journey to be exact, maybe even longer. But can't wait to share with you that. Also, the help that we received from the Best Friends team. And I see a few of the cohorts there that are the A team that helped us get everything over the finish line. Young Williams, we are a nonprofit that holds the contract with both the city of Knoxville and Knox County. So I've got two governments, and previously animal control was housed under the sheriff's office as well as the Knoxville Police Department. So I had two agencies to deal with to then consolidate to pull them under our purview. So thought it was going to break me, but we made it, and it's been a really great, it'll be a year, April 1st. So, yeah. Hey. But I'm going to walk through today, kind of share with you sort of what it was like before, just kind of touch on that, and then really why we made the decision and why we worked so hard to make that transition. And then identifying the stakeholders. Let me ask this. How many right now oversee animal control within their agencies? Okay. How many would like to assume animal control? And you're, all right. Well, hopefully I'm here to help. And then hopefully there's some takeaways for those of you who already oversee animal control. We renamed ours Animal Services. But building your case, it's always about dollars and cents. Establishing credibility, walking you through our transition, our timeline, and communication, and the win. Once you realize you get it over the finish line, it's kind of careful what you wish for. Then it's like, what do you do next? So then staffing, training, and branding, and then sharing with you kind of our launch, first year highlights, and really what we're doing to build the trust within the community. Hurdles, lessons we learned, and then any questions that you might have. So really the reason that we worked so hard is we were already doing everything within the animal welfare space except animal control. So it was the only piece of the pie that we didn't manage. We were doing the sheltering, we were doing the humane education, we were holding bite quarantine, cruelty investigations with our medical team. So we really we were helping with the licensing with the city of Knoxville. So the only thing we weren't doing was bringing animals from externally into the shelter. And the former animal control was not working with us very well. They were sort of sabotaging our efforts. We have a managed intake program. People would come make an appointment. Animal control would meet them in our back parking lot and say, hey, just give me the pet and I'll take it in the back door. So we take in roughly 10,000 animals a year. So we needed virtually all the help we could get to be able to control our own destiny, if you will. So we had to find our why. There are a lot of whys, but they're all connected. So we really, more than anything, wanted to create a community-based model. A lot of us in animal control know that kind of the old mentality is to cite and seize an animal. Issue a citation, seize an animal if you can, and we needed to move toward an educate and assist model. We know that people don't know ordinances. We know that they don't know laws. They're not against compliance. They just don't know what compliance looks like and what that means. So more sustainable solutions, being a direct conduit to resources, our pet resource center. So be it pet food, be it fences, shelter, just basic care and welfare. And so we also wanted to make sure with city and county, we've got two different ordinances. So we wanted to create more consistency. They don't vary greatly, but we wanted to create more consistency across the jurisdiction. And again, we wanted to be one voice in the field with animal services and the shelter. We wanted to bridge that gap. And also just duplication of service, triplication in this case, with two different agencies and then ours. So we wanted to be able to hit the easy button for pet owners in our community. How can we help them? How can we get them to come into compliance? And then as a national welfare organization, we felt like we've been a model in this space, but we really wanted to have a 360 and be a leader in animal welfare across the community. We are the largest animal welfare organization in the state of Tennessee, mainly by intake and revenue, et cetera, but we really wanted to be a holistic model. So what we had to do was identify our stakeholders. We had two governments, again, two mayors, two administrative offices, two law departments, two law enforcement agencies, the DA's office, our judges, because as mentioned, we're holding these quarantine cases, cruelty and neglect cases. We needed to try and get everybody on the same page and get behind us to support this initiative. Obviously, our board of directors within Young-Williams, and obviously our employees. We've got 110 employees. So, it's hard to always bring everybody along. So we really needed to educate our team internally. And then, of course, you got to have media support. Community, donors, critical. You want to get them on board, educate them, help them understand why. And then our other animal welfare partners and advocates. So really identifying those stakeholders will help set your path forward. And if you already have it, it's building relationships and it's maintaining that and helping them recognize what a valuable community partner you are. So building our case, we wanted to make sure the ultimate goal, help them understand the ultimate goal and what the paradigm shift, why it was going to be a good thing, and what it would accomplish. Creating a united front, again, having all the agencies together. If it's all under our purview, then we're all working toward the greater good of animal welfare in the community. Life-saving strategies versus old protocols. Some of you who already oversee it may experience this if you're a municipal shelter or within a law enforcement infrastructure, that law enforcement doesn't always invest in their animal control officers. And so with that, they're not approaching it from a holistic animal welfare perspective. So you're not getting the training that the officers aren't getting the training that they need. They aren't in touch with best practices within animal welfare. And so you're really being shorted on the value and the difference that you can make within the community. Combating animal cruelty and neglect. So our goal, if we could take over this contract, if we could ultimately problem solve on the front end through dispatch, et cetera, then we could lower the call volume and be able to spend more time doing welfare checks and doing cruelty and neglect investigations. So if we could just get out of the weeds and get in a place that's where we were, then we could focus on what we all really care about. And it also financial benefit. And the one thing I will say if you're in this space or if you're trying to move this direction, you never want it to be, it's more cost effective, it's not less costly, because you don't want to sell yourself short. And if you take over the contract, you don't want to just come in with a low bid, because ultimately, there's a reason they're turning it over, but you're going to hear, well, is it going to be less taxpayer dollars? As I say, you can't be the best and the cheapest. So it's not about being less cost, it's just being more cost effective and more efficient. And that's your talking point. And then really, what's the final thought? Again, back to being a valuable community partner and creating the most pet-friendly city. Knoxville's been taught as the pet-friendliest city in America. I'm sure all of you could say that about your jurisdictions. But at any rate, we really wanted to be pet-friendly and be so focused on animal welfare and the betterment of our community. So when we were going through this, we came up with 3 main talking points. And really, it was about, we wanted, again, back to the consistency. Let's move away from cite and seize to educate and assist. That was really our main goal. Secondly, animal control, animal services overall, it's not a law enforcement function. Do you have your cruelty and neglect cases, criminal cases? You do. But at the end of the day, the majority of the calls are not, and it's not a law enforcement function. So we wanted to sell our law enforcement agencies in the sense that let them go out and protect and serve and keep our communities safe. Let us do what our expertise is and handle the animal welfare piece. And then second of all, again, back to money. Being more cost effective, eliminating duplication of service, and overall, that's what they want to hear at the end of the day. How is this going to benefit us? So, show me the money. So I spent a lot of time, and what I'll say is I did look. I consulted with other jurisdictions. I got budgets from other jurisdictions. I got contracts. So I tried to pull all of that information together and started to build my contract, my budget. And this is essentially the budget that I came up with. And one thing I'll say is, for instance, on equipment, they already exist. That equipment is going to transfer over, but you never know what kind of shape it's going to be in. You don't know if you're going to have to buy new equipment, so you got to budget for it like you're buying everything brand new. So I remember when we were finally getting things passed, one of the county commissioners looked at me as I was presenting, and he was kind of fighting me on it and was pushing back. He was listening kind of to the old regime, to some older animal control officers, and he's like, I know you're going to be back asking us for more money, so I hope this works for you. So I met with that commissioner a couple of weeks ago, and hopefully he'll be eating his words, because I think we're doing pretty well. But at any rate, thinking of every little thing. Trucks, what I'll say is we got all the trucks, but I think we're in a place right now where 2 of them need new engines. So little things that you've got to think about moving forward and making sure that you're not doing it at the expense of the rest of your operations. So establishing credibility. You've got your stakeholders, you've built your case, you're trying to educate, and what you really want to do is sell yourself and why this is a good decision. So you need to pull out all of your stats, intake, adoptions, return to owner, resource distribution, as well, multi-year save rates, success stories. You really want to capture the success stories, because usually your stakeholders, all they hear about, I'm talking about the electeds and your administrations, they're getting those emails about what you're doing horribly wrong. So really sharing those success stories and helping them understand those are the exceptions. Any governance initiatives, Have you done any ordinance changes? What are you doing within the organization to help further animal welfare in the community? Is your organization financially stable? What new programs have you done? What's the organizational growth? So really proving your case about it is your credibility, awards and recognitions, and then what other nearby jurisdictions have transitioned successfully. No government entity wants to be the first to create the wheel, ever. They don't want to take ownership for that. They don't want to be the innovators, but at the same time, so really looking at others. I don't know if anybody from Kansas City Pet Project is in here, but they had just gone through this about a year before. So I did reach out, and they were one of my models, but there are a number of different jurisdictions, and they usually want them in your region. So within the South, to share with them others who've done it successfully, why and how. So then you have all of that information, and you form a transition team. And it was members of my team, my operations director, my facilities director, myself, obviously, and then both law enforcement agencies being represented, both members of the administration, law departments, purchasing, and there are all of those. You want your own legal counsel as well to be able to review contracts. And also dispatch at the time was going through our E911 center. So wanted them at the table because that was our plan to continue to use E911 for our dispatch services. So we had all of those at the table, and there's so many things to consider. And obviously, we were kind of learning as we go. And I'm pretty detail-oriented and really try and think through everything. But of course, it was like, oh, well, I didn't think I had to get citations approved by a judge or legal counsel. I mean, I did from a common sense perspective, but getting that sign off. So, and the other thing is too, with any law enforcement, like their software, if you're trying to get historical data, that just doesn't happen. A, because their systems are generally so antiquated, and secondly, they have such security locks on them, any type of migration is pretty much impossible. So you're really starting with not a lot of back information, not a lot of history from, you know, past offenders, repeat offenders, all of those things. So we sort of had to get that. The bonding process, and two, one of the hurdles, and it hasn't really turned out to be a hurdle so much at the moment, while we would like to do it, is that the sheriff's office particularly did not want to relinquish control of kind of the criminal process. So if we had a criminal case, they wanted to make sure that they still had their hand in it, that they could still control it. And so from a bonding standpoint, we're like civil servants, code enforcement, if you will. And then if we have a criminal case, we've got liaisons with both the city and the county, but the county had their heels dug in. But fortunately, I was able to kind of put in my wish list. I knew a couple of the former officers who actually were fairly easy to work with, and they ultimately, 2 of them were picked to be our liaisons. So they're actually working quite well with us. But lots of little things to consider. And if you're doing it and haven't considered, there are always things to think about. So this is a timeline, and this actually credit to the Best Friends Field Services team that helped us. This is a beautiful timeline of at least 6 months plus, and as you'll learn, we didn't have quite that much time. But this is really thinking through everything in an ideal world in perfect order. Some of this worked out in this order, some of it didn't. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants on some, but this was a great guideline. about how to make this transition and the steps that you need to do and follow if you're going to do it. Then we came up with the communications plan, which is critical. Incredibly time-consuming, but so worth it. We had to secure support of both mayors, both administrations, like I said, chief of police, sheriff, meet individually with members of Knoxville City Council, and I will be, I forgot to mention at the time of doing all this, I did sit on Knoxville City Council. So that was both a blessing and a curse. And members of Knox County Commission. And one thing I will say about setting up all these meetings and meeting with them individually, I did solicit the help of a PR firm or somebody that could help coordinate all of this. And somebody who's in that space. I knew them all, but at the same time, just from a transparency standpoint and not appearing to have a conflict of interest, really working with somebody that could tag team with me and help coordinate these. We had a city animal control board. I sat on the board. It's appointed by the mayor because I'm the head of the local animal shelter, and at the time I was actually the chair of the board. So it was kind of this trifecta of council, president of the animal control board who was trying to take over animal control, and then the head of the shelter. So like I say, a blessing and a curse, because again, I had to remain objective and not look like, sound like, behave like I was strong-arming everybody, even though in my head, a lot of mental gymnastics about, okay, I'm coming after you if you don't support this. So at any rate, and then really, KPD, Sheriff's Office, advising, all their members about the changes. It was a lot. And then really, a great thing we did is sort of had a little town hall and hosted all of the electeds, anybody. We had some hecklers show up, which they do, but we hosted a dinner, a tour, an informational session about why we wanted to make this transition. And that was helpful because they could come see the shelter, they could come see the volume of animals, they could really understand what we were trying to do. And we had a really great turnout and had information for them. And then once we did that, obviously the media begins to frenzy. So issuing press releases, making sure we had those 3 talking points, stuck to them, gave people information about young Williams, and then continuing education. And then we had to get through 4 votes, 2 on city council, 2 on county commission. What I will say briefly is earlier in the year, the animal control board, member that I served on, took some new animal welfare ordinances to the city and the county. And I had an activist group kind of come after us and try to put some ordinances in place that we did not support. We agreed with about 95% of the changes, but really I was headstrong on a piece of the ordinance that I did not support. Long story short, all 8 of my colleagues on council voted against me, because apparently I don't know anything about animal welfare and being the expert in the field, but when it came to this, I kind of felt like they owed me. So it was kind of like losing the battle but winning the war. But I took great offense to it at the time. But anyway, we had to get through 4 readings, and we had a lot of people out against us. Former animal control officers, activist group, that felt like we were just trying to do a money grab. You name it, they're going to come up with any excuse as to why this shouldn't happen. But December 12th, 2023 was the final vote that we needed. And so it was like, I had already established a transition date of April 1st. So it was like, now what? Really, it was about hitting the gas and getting to work. You got the holidays in there, so I had 90 days to get this team, hire a team. And let me just say that previous animal control officers had the opportunity to interview for their positions. That was part of the agreement. Just between you and I didn't really want any of them. One came over, and she's awesome. But there's a reason, obviously, right, that I worked so hard to make this happen, because they weren't working with us at all. So had to hire, had to get job descriptions ready, set that date, get the best friends, field service team on board to help with training. And I'll shout out, we got Nick and AJ back there. Scott, he's not able to be here. April, I don't know if she's in here, but I'm here to tell you, if any of y'all ever need their help with what you're currently doing or wanting to make that transition, best resource ever. I couldn't have done it without them. And then assemble a training playbook. I mean, I had all of these documents floating around, but having to put together a training playbook even before I had a director. So just hit it running. So what did we have to do? I had 17 positions to hire, 15 officers, a director, and a supervisor. I had 2 dispatch personnel, and what I will say is that was not a part of the original plan. Remember, we were going to use E911 to continue to dispatch, and then we kind of just started thinking about it, because they had done a good job over the years, but at the same time, they weren't willing to help us problem solve and gather the information that we needed per call. You know, is it running at large? Hey, you should call the Pet Resource Center for this, et cetera. So we discovered Amazon Web Services. It's an AI technology. If any of y'all use that, we're using that for our dispatch service. And it's worked beautifully. There are back-end information that you can get, see who's answered the call, see how long that call lasts, see how long it takes to resolve. I'm a believer. It has a lot of functionality that we're still figuring out and training up on, but we decided to bring dispatch in-house. I didn't budget for dispatchers. So, and I thought I had pretty much budgeted for everything, but I'm pretty good at like, okay, we can move some things around. Like I said, all current officers could interview. And then our whole goal is we wanted to hire a team that really reflected the community, had that community mindset of, I want to help, and not kind of have that badge-heavy law enforcement attitude. And so, you know, I went after healthcare workers, customer service people, and really in a short amount of time, we hired a really great team. And, you know, our training was based on NACA, as well as the Best Friends model, and then our field training program. And then, you know, we wanted to include things like leadership and critical thinking and, you know, conflict resolution and negotiation, customer service, community outreach. Those were all priority for us as characteristics of who we wanted to hire and be a part of this new team, be a part of this new culture. And really, you know, we didn't know who would be interested and what the pool of candidates was going to look like. Have a bilingual officer. So that was really the criteria that we looked at when we were hiring. Training. AJ, how you doing? So AJ, wave your hand. Came in, so when we started training, remember April 1st was our transition date. Our start date with this team was March 18th. We had less than 2 weeks to train them, to get them up to speed, to help them learn everything that they needed to do to hit the ground running, because at 12:01, actually at 7 a.m. on the 1st, we were going to start taking calls, and everybody was waiting for us to fail. So, but we did it. We bonded for that less than 2 weeks, and crammed a lot in, and it was a great first day, which I'll share with you in a second. But I think we've got a video, just a tiny little. It was working earlier. Huh? Oh. Over. Oh, well, yes, it's just a little. Just to show you him in action, right? So it was really, oh, sorry about that. Let's watch it again and again. So then we had to get our collateral together, which is a lot. I go back to citations. We had to rewrite them. We had to get, literally within 24 hours, I had to get a judge on the county side and the city judge, because two different citations, because we've got two different sets of ordinances, and get approvals on that. We created these door hangers, which have been awesome in both English and Spanish. And on the back, you can see we've got QR codes. QR code for our city ordinances, our local ordinances, actually a QR code from Best Friends that shares tips about, running at large or various things, which has been really pretty great. And then our citation forms and cards that they can leave. So this collateral has been pretty great to have and to hand out, and making sure that we have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted. And there's a lot more. This is just a little bit of what we hand out. And then launch day, which was April 1st. This was just, you see up in the left corner, we didn't have our facility yet. So the city of Knoxville was providing us a facility at another location where they had housed one of their other police department, inner departments was located. So they gave us like a double wide, but it wasn't ready yet. We had to have some work done, but we were makeshifting out of, this is at the shelter. I had to take over the community room, and we dispatched out of there for 3 weeks at least. But this was really the beginning. And again, when you launch, you want it to be positive, and obviously having that support from the media was really critical, having them there on day one. After that, within a month, we hosted a lunch for all of the original stakeholders, both within the shelter and the community, to come to meet our new officers, to see our new trucks. And again, just to continue that communication and building that relationship. Some of these first year highlights, April through January, we based dispatch, staffing, everything on 16,000 to 18,000 calls a year. We aren't even through year one through January. We've had over 21,000 calls. The good news is that you can tell by the graph is that we're dispatching less than 50% of that. So a lot of people are calling for other services for the shelter, but then a lot of them are just being resolved with problem solving over the phone or answering questions, whereas before that would have never happened. So, and then as far as intake, return to owner, 392 animals in just that time period were returned to their owners in the field. I gave previous animal control officers microchip scanners to put on their trucks. Did they use them? Didn't use them at all. Would just easier to bring that animal in. And as my team says, it's easier to bring an animal into the shelter than to keep it out. So they weren't going to make that effort to keep an animal out of the shelter. But to return, that would have been 392, roughly 4% of our population that would have come into the shelter in an already overcapacity. Who can identify with that? Shelter. And then cruelty calls investigated. But, you know, most of them are just welfare checks. So these are some first-year highlights. All of those, we've had 3 animal cruelty cases. We introduced a new set of bonding forfeiture policy with the court system. So, you know, a lot of times animals would have to stay in our care throughout the entire judicial process. If we don't get that policy and the judge didn't rule as far as a care bond to help care for that animal up front, then that animal becomes our custody within 10 days, I think. And then just having the officers out in the community and connecting with schools and colleges and, you know, representing us here. And then, again, increase field, return to owner, and then, you know, having all of those officers in those trucks equipped with pet food, with fence, you know, gate latches, with any kind of equipment, you know, obviously scanners and dog houses and hay and whatever we can do to keep the pet in the home, because at the end of the day, that's our goal, and to help them come into compliance. We did collaborate and brought in a hoarding case of 20 bassets that were super cute. And we're also in the middle of a cruelty case with some bunnies, which most people don't think about. But that really, you know, those have been some of our highlights. Again, this is Bella. She was our first bonding and forfeiture petition that we successfully were able to see through. And then continued training. We've hosted training with our team, continued. I say we hired 2 dispatchers, but all of our officers have to go through a 5-hour dispatch training, so they can rotate, or if they're injured or that's the case, then they can help with dispatch. So they really can do pretty much everything. And TWRA, our Tennessee Wildlife Agency, our team deals with a lot of wildlife in our area, but being able to connect with some other animal welfare organizations as well to have various training. Police captured an escaped pig. Police didn't capture a pig, but he took the great photo op. Our person's behind him catching the pig. And then, believe it or not, on 2 different occasions, we had people impersonating animal services officers at people's door and trying to gain access to their home. So that was a big media thing. We showed that, you know, here's what they're dressed like, here's what they're going to be driving, here are their credentials, but it's just crazy. And then testimonials, some great media, some pictures. Josh, raise your hand in the back. There's one of our officers. Josh is one of our animal services GOAT. So he's awesome and thrilled to be here. Metrics and transparency. We really tried to capture everything. I do give Kansas City Pet Project some credit here because they've done a great job about you know, creating that confidence, credibility after the fact. This is a monthly report that we put out, I send out to the electeds, share with our board, and just sharing anything like this. Some of our hurdles, past animal control reputation, and we still deal with that. And we're like, I can't help what they did or what might have happened in the past, but here's how we can help you now. Creating new proactive law enforcement liaisons. We've managed to find, it's hard to find law enforcement officers who really care about animals and want to be a part of the solution. So we've got some great liaisons now on both the city and the county. Again, getting permissions to get that historical data is a hurdle, and we really weren't very successful at it. So we had to start a lot from scratch. And again, bridging the gap between the shelter and animal services, and getting our team to get on board with them, our intake and the rest of our organization, and vice versa, because they had been like this for so long, and learning to trust our new team. Activists, they're always out there, and I think we understand. And we had a really bad distemper outbreak this summer. We emerged, but it was probably the hardest 3 weeks of my 8.5 years at Young Williams. And some lessons learned. Would have been more prepared, training, obviously that 6-month timeline would have been lovely. But we really worked within the confines of what we knew we had worked so hard to get there. We were absolutely going to make it happen, and failure was not an option. And then more shadowing within our organization so the officers could really learn more about, every step of the process, from intake to our vet clinic to animal care, pet resource center, and then, just having more shadowing opportunities and hands-on, and then understanding the bonding process sooner, because we scrambled, we got it done to get all of our officers bonded so they could start writing citations if needed. And basically, we built a boat while we were swimming. But could not be more proud of this team, what they've accomplished. It couldn't have gone any smoother, and they're really just rock stars, and what they're doing for the community. These porcupine just came in while I've been here, so he's huge. One more little quick video.
We could not be more proud of our animal services team. They're already out in this community making a difference. At the beginning of April, Young Williams took on the responsibility of animal control for Knox County, and 17 strangers came together with the common purpose of doing good. In making a difference in the lives of people and animals, and really shaping this community. They're out making a difference already, and again, we just couldn't be more proud or appreciate or thankful for the work that they're doing. It's important work, incredibly important work, and these are the people that should be doing it. So next time you see them, give them a wave, a smile, and a thank you.
And that's it. Do we have any questions? There's no such thing as a dumb one. Yeah. I think he's got a speaker for you.
And we speak into it like this.
Okay. I was just wondering how you're budgeting for community resources like dog houses. Are those like pre-bought ones, or are you building them, or?
Some of them are grants. Some of them we've been able to secure some grant funding for. But also I did kind of build in a bit of a budget for just some of those supplies, because it's really, again, marketing, trust building, and, trying to work with the compliance piece. So, so a little bit of everything. We obviously do work to get grants, but I also built some into the budget as well.
I have what may be a dumb question. I don't work for a municipal shelter or in field services, but I'm out in the field a lot. I do trap, neuter, return and hoarding projects and so forth. I have a good friend who works at animal control who said, they just spend a lot of time driving around. They get a call about a dog. By the time they get there, the dog's gone. Is there a better way to dispatch calls to be more efficient for your field service officers?
Great question. What I will say, and I think statistically it's like 40% of strays aren't there by the time an officer arrives. Depending on, we know that, so those are low priority calls. We do have a tiered system of priority calls. And then let's say that they're driving around, and I'm sure Josh will attest to this, but driving around, you know, go to city parks, go to dog parks, you know, again, be a friendly face. Really trying to encourage them that they're not just sitting under a bridge or in a parking lot idle, that they're still out there. But as far as strays, and if we go in emergency only, you know, we also, those running at large, as long as it's not aggressive or a public health and safety issue, then if we get there whenever we get there. But we do try to respond to everything else within a short amount. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
I was just wondering what the population for your service area is.
We're 526 square miles, and then population-wise, we're between 600,000 and 700,000, and growing at a rate. We're supposed to grow 20% within the next 15 years.
How do you handle criminal activity when you arrive somewhere which you think is maybe just a regular situation, and then all of a sudden it turns into being some sort of a criminal activity?
So two things. We will either call for backup of patrol or call our liaisons, because we need to have kind of that badge presence. We'll do the work, but we need to have that law enforcement presence if it's an animal cruelty. By the way, it's unbelievable how many people are arrested with their animals in their cars. It happens weekly to us. It's crazy. And we have to hold those animals. And we generally get stuck with the bill, and that's a whole other session. But to that point, we call, and then there have been incidences where the homeowner is belligerent and unsafe, so we've had to call for backup just for the safety of our officers. But we call KPD or sheriff, depending on city and county, to come and assist with us to be able to write the criminal, and then we work with our liaisons to take it to court or to meet with the DA's office. Yes, they do, but we're teaching. It's a teaching moment, but we have great liaisons, so that's been a terrific help.
Oh.
First.
Where? Oh.
Then I'll come to you.
I just wanted to say, in regards to the arrests while, driving with her pet, what we do, we actually have a special boarding agency that works with us for those seizures for law enforcement. So if it's a law enforcement seizure, they'll take them to that specialized boarding agency that's still technically in our possession, but they're just housed at a different facility that we run as well. So that way, it's not technically coming into our shelter, but it's still in our possession. So that way, it doesn't take up much kennel space in our facility.
That's a great point, because we also have put some kennels at the police at KPD's facility. We want to put some at local fire stations, and we're also working with hospitals. So when people are picked up for a medical emergency and have dogs or animals in the home, we're trying to work with EMT and hospitals to try and get that information before 2, 3, 5 days have passed and this animal's been by itself. So things like that we're still building.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you guys handle wildlife calls? Is there like a point where you will not handle it? Do you have to do any of the population control issues?
So sick and injured wildlife, we pick up a lot. And then other wildlife, we do. We don't bring in healthy, ideally, either re-release it, but a lot of times they want our help and assistance if it's in a skunk or whatever. So we'll go help and assist, but ideally we're not picking up healthy wildlife. We'll relocate it. Well, if it's injured, sick, or suspected, by state law we have to euthanize. So that's coming in, or absolutely. So obviously, we're all dealing kind of with bird flu right now. I'm told to shut up now. I'm sorry. Thank you.